Thanks everybody for joining us today for how to prove ROI to the C-suite when every dollar counts. So you have with you today, I'm Jason Hubbard. I'm Vice President of Partnerships and Alliances that sells Intel. And then we have Nicole Kelly here with us. Nicole has a lot of different roles, but she is also one of the leading researchers in emotional intelligence in the workplace. This is now the third webinar I've done with Nicole, so she's fantastic to work with, always has great insights. And part of what we'll be talking about towards the end of this will be some of the insights from a recent study that she did. But yeah, you guys are all in for a treat. Nicole's awesome and excited to be doing another one of these with her.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Do you want to take the agenda? You want me to walk through it?
Sure, I can take it away, and if you just interrupt me whenever you want.
Sure.
We've done this enough times that
yeah, we'll keep it conversational and relaxed, but cool. I'll let you run with it.
Yeah, so Jason and Ariana came to me and asked, what kind of gift I felt we could give for marketers and salespeople today. And I really felt like it was a good time for us to start having the conversation about a return on investment as we're starting to see budgets clamp down. We're starting to see resources being questioned. This is a really important time for us to get really clear about what's working and what's not. So the first thing I wanted to go over with you is how you can actually get data that the C-suite actually cares about. Many times as marketers, we pull all different kinds of data, but when we really get down to the core, we need to understand what they care about, and that will actually make our plates a little bit smaller. Then I want to go over with you how you can improve your in-CRM ROI tracking. There are free tools that you can use that are readily available. You literally start using them and the data is going to start piping in. So every single marketing automation and CRM system has this ability already built in. You just need to know what you need to plug in on the front end. Then I wanted to go in through some creative strategies for how you can create deep in CRM sales intelligence that the sales team really drools over. This is something that I've been working on for about 15 years, and I finally found the secret sauce so that you can get some really deep intelligence, and the sales team is super happy about it. And then the last thing we're going to go over is some innovative can opener strategies so that you can activate high target contacts either through an ABM approach or just a direct targeting approach. So you want to start us off, Jason?
Sure. So first up is what is the actual data that C-suite cares about? So yeah, anybody on marketing knows that you've got to convince the C-suite, especially when it comes to budgeting, and doubly so right now. I mean, this is one that's near and dear for me because I get to fight this battle just about every day. So justifying where we need to allocate limited resources, what's going to be worth it, what's not. So this is hugely important.
Yeah, so I've been having this particular conversation but for about 12 years now, and I've done a lot of research, one, working inside of marketing teams, and two, leading marketing teams on what does the C-suite actually care about. As marketers, as you know, we have thousands of points of data and access for us, especially as marketing has moved digital. We literally have a plethora of data available to us. And what I see a lot are marketers that basically flood their executives with a lot of metrics, thinking that it's more about quantity over quality. And so I'm a big proponent of quality data. And the specific data that I have found works the best is when you focus on kind of four things. The costs, we need to understand marketing costs. Sometimes this can feel a little nebulous as you're running many campaigns and programs. Sometimes you're spending, say you're spending a couple $100,000 in one particular area. Being able to attribute that into actually what works can be a little bit difficult because we start getting into how do you attribute costs into opportunities and revenue. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So they're looking for costs. They're looking for the number of leads. Very easy. How many leads did you turn over to sale? How many of those leads turned into opportunities? And how much revenue did that actually create? So
yeah, I mean, quick question on that front, and it'll be a good lead over to the next slide. Is one of the struggles I've had most whenever it comes to marketing and ROI is obviously so much of what we do is really tough to attribute. So trying to do things like brand awareness, mind share, stuff like that, where it's really hard to draw a straight line from what you're doing there to what your ROI is, or directly attribute. Events being a perfect example, even though face-to-face events are not doing so great right now. But if you track ROI from an event straight through to leads generated at a booth, a lot of people would never have a positive ROI on an event. And so if you don't somehow make the case that there's additional, value there beyond that, then, especially at a time like this where every penny counts, that can be challenging.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're talking to the C-suite, it's really important to explain to them what the halo is, what the halo effect is. So when you're talking about events, when you're talking about brand awareness, we know that it takes 6 to 12 touches before somebody even remembers your brand name. We might look at something like organic search and look at direct traffic coming through the website as indicators that are high ROI activities, but many times we forget about the 6 to 12 touches that it actually took to get there. So I'll be really honest, the only way you can draw a direct line from halo, high funnel, top of the halo kind of activities down to actually sales is to be able to track full campaign history. I don't know why this is not easy inside of CRM, why it's not easy inside of marketing automation systems yet. We've known for 15 years we need to be tracking this. It is tracked, interestingly enough. Like, I'm a HubSpot user. HubSpot tracks every single activity that someone goes through, but being able to report that on a high level across all contacts is just not possible unless you build your own database. So what I found is that it's important that you build a multi-attribution model where you're looking at least first touch and last touch. If you're only looking at last touch, you're going to end up killing 75% of your marketing budget on all those high funnel activities. But those are actually the activities that are required to nurture the relationship through the sale. So in looking at breaking this kind of down, this is the way I do it. I like to use OKRs, which are essentially objectives and key results. This streamlines the conversation with the sales executives so that the C-suite executives, so that they understand that all of these are contributors through the funnel. When you start understanding sales and actually aligning marketing with sales, what you'll know and start to learn is that from a sales perspective, sales understands that there's a relationship point of the sales process. So I try to align this with how salespeople talk about their own metrics and then pass it back into marketing. So I've broken these down into two categories: marketing metrics and sales metrics. The first is the key result. Our objective is obviously to drive sales-ready leads to sales. Every marketing team knows that's our primary objective. And if you don't, then this is your primary objective now. The key result on that is going to be the number of marketing qualified leads. This is someone who has opted into your database and they've shown some kind of interest in your content, but they haven't directly shown interest in what you do, your product, or your service, whatever it is that you're selling. So this might be someone who subscribes to your newsletter. They might attend a general information webinar, but they haven't done something that indicates that they're specifically interested in what your company does. When they do that, when they actually convert into someone who we've indicated that they are interested in something you do, we then call them a sales qualified lead. We have a process for someone to become a sales qualified lead. They first become a lead, and then sales actually directly qualifies them. So this would be someone in our case that has, maybe they visited a web page that is a product that we provide. Maybe it's a service that we provide, but they're actually starting to give us some indication of the area of service that they would be interested in. And then the sales team actually starts to qualify them. So we go from lead to sales qualified lead. Then we start to move into our sales metrics, and we're looking at the number of leads that we've passed over to sales as the first indicator that we have nurtured someone to the point that they're interested in a sales conversation. Then we look at the number of opportunities that have been created and the number of deals closed. This is very simple, 5 metrics that you can show on a dashboard that really quickly start to tell the story of marketing. Now, the time from MQL to deal close might be 9 to 12 months in many B2B industries. Sometimes it's up to 24 months. If you're in more of like a retail sale, then that time might be hours or minutes. So just understanding your market and how long it takes for someone to go from point A to point B is also really important. But if you can use these 5 key metrics, your C-suite will understand what you're talking about, and you'll be able to actually demonstrate what what marketing is contributing. But the question really comes in, like you said, of what marketing activity drove to that result. And that's where you have to start using some tools and some tracking mechanisms so that you can report on that.
Yeah. I think the key there is, you've got to make sure marketing and sales are aligned with each other. It's still mind-boggling to me to this day, the number of agencies or companies where marketing and sales are completely siloed and they're working towards completely different metrics. And especially at a time like this, it's even more crucial than ever to break down that silo and get alignment between those two departments and teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we call it smarketing in our teams, because we are very clear that our job is that we are sales driven marketers, and that's it. We are not brand marketers. We are also not direct response marketers. Our sales cycles tend to be 9 to 12 months. So there is a nurturing portion of this, but when you get to smarketing, you're a smarter marketer because you actually understand what you're trying to deliver at the end, for sure.
Yep. Yep. All right, so I mean, most of us are dealing with limited resources, so running around trying to, build reports and go between different data silos and stuff like that's something that none of us have time for. So how do we make that better?
Yeah, so this is like the bottom line, no fluff. This is exactly how you do it. It's so easy and it's absolutely available. If you have a CRM system, if you have a marketing automation or any kind of email system, but specifically marketing automation to CRM, this will work for you 100% of the time. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to use what are called UTM tracking parameters. Now, this example, I'm using Google Analytics because quite frankly, that's where 80 to 90% of the market is. But if you're using Adobe or any of the other systems, they also have tracking parameters. They just won't have this particular URL builder, but they have the parameters and you just go to wherever they tell you to go to build it. So when you go to, if you go to Google and you just search for Google campaign URL builder, Google URL builder, it'll eventually track you into this page. And you'll notice that there are 5 kind of key content areas that you can track. There's the source, the medium, campaign, content, and term. And this is standard in all systems. They might call them different things, but they're for the same purpose. The way that I use them is that the source is the channel, and Google Analytics automatically fills this out. So like you'll notice that if you do email, it tries to guess at this if you don't actually build the tracking parameters yourself, and they use source as the marketing channel that it's coming from. So that's going to be your email, it's going to be website, or search, all of those kind of things. Then we move into medium, and I use this as content type. So here's where I would put, it's an email, it's an event, it's a webinar, it's a research study, whatever it might be a downloadable ebook, whatever your content types are. This is where you're going to be able to determine the effectiveness of those types. Then we move into campaign name, which is very simple. You all know how to use this. This is the initiative names. So however you're referring to it internally, I do recommend that you fully type these out, that you don't use a bunch of codes that you then have to decipher later, because that just makes your job way harder. And I know so many teams that do that. And it's like, there is no limit here. Type it in. You can use spaces, whatever it is that you need to do. Then you have content. This is primarily used when you're doing advertising. So content would be what I call a content identifier. It would be something that identifies what that ad is and what's in that ad. So it might be variable A, variable B, but I always also include something like the headline text or something so I know which variation it is. And then the last one is term, and that's where you put your content keywords. So like if in our industry, we're in the IT operations space a lot. So we might do something around the AI ops, which is artificial intelligence in that particular space. So I like to do that because that gives me a bucket that then I can compare that bucket across multiple campaigns, across multiple leads. So you basically, I included a screenshot here. You can see you put in the website URL you're sending them to. And this campaign source, it was a Splunk promotion. This is actually they're sending this content out in their own channels. They're using email, and it's related to our COVID impact study. Because it was an email that was coming from their sales team, we didn't need the term in the content field, but we certainly could if we wanted to. So then the interesting thing is that this data automatically passes, like your system, if you've got Google Analytics on your website and on your forms, the only thing you need to do on your forms is start to add hidden fields for source, medium, and campaign. That is built into every form system that I've seen. So you just basically add those hidden fields and they're gonna automatically populate. And you do wanna make sure they're hidden just because people can't fill them in. In this case, you can see right inside of HubSpot, we've got a list for our webinar registrants, and it clearly shows the source, medium, and campaign that aligns with that campaign that I just showed you. And it's automatically there. I can tell exactly what drove registrations. Then from a HubSpot's perspective, we use HubSpot, you might use Marketo and Eloqua, something like that. All this will be consistent throughout all of those systems. Then you're pushing into CRM. You do have the option of using HubSpot CRM. I know they kind of play in both spaces. We use Salesforce. So then I needed to push this information into Salesforce. In order to do that, I have to set up a campaign inside of Salesforce. And then when on that form, when I create that form inside of HubSpot, it asks me specifically what Salesforce campaign that relates to. That's the data linkage point that you need. So we put that the campaign inside of Salesforce was the COVID impact study Splunk, because we wanted a specific campaign related to this vendor partner that we're working with. And you can see I've got 85 members in there. If I go into one of the campaign, I also can put in my budget. So this is where I'm starting to get on ROI reporting. This particular campaign was budgeted for $5,000 and it cost us $5,000. So we're on track. It also will give you a high level of how many leads versus contacts are in that campaign, which is an important designator from a sales perspective. They work leads. They don't work contacts. So, however your system, however your sales process works, you want to make sure that that's actually clear. Then once you get on to the lead, we have built in the fields. This is also, it's inside Salesforce. You just have to add it to your view. And they have Google Analytics, campaign, content, medium, source, and term. They also have the ability to do first touch and last touch. So we're in the process right now of actually building in our first touch and last touch attribution. But what this does is that now this lead has all of those campaign parameters so that when I go to report on what drove leads, I actually can pull the Google Analytics information and I can have a very clear Salesforce report on that. So my biggest tip here is to keep it silly simple. I know some people say KISS is keep it simple, stupid, but I'm like, keep it silly simple. It should be so simple, it's silly. Only the data you need, absolutely need. And that's why we only use those 5 metrics. Make sure that you connect your dots to the opportunity and to revenue. If it's not in CRM, it doesn't exist. And it has to be reportable from within CRM. You don't want to be doing your marketing reports for the executive team out of marketing systems, because a lot of times they don't connect into that opportunity and revenue. HubSpot does connect backwards, but I'll be honest, HubSpot reporting isn't very efficient for me. It doesn't have the drill downs that I like. So we do everything inside of Salesforce.
Yeah, we use the exact same tech stack as you guys do. And to your point on the opportunity side, so for anybody that's not familiar with this process or workflow, campaign membership is contact centric. There is no way to automatically, or let's put it this way, Salesforce will not automatically associate a contact associated with a campaign necessarily with an opportunity. So you either need to have some sort of a process automation that you've customized or built, or it needs to be part of your standard sales process, that if somebody is a active member of a campaign, to add them as a contact role to that opportunity, so you can now link those different records, different objects.
Yeah, this is where it becomes marketing, right? This is where you ask sales to help you help them. And, the conversation that I've always had with them is, we need you to follow a process of tracking so that when we ask for money to drive your pipeline, we get it. And that's pretty much enough for them to understand. And it is true. They have to associate those contacts in the opportunity, or you're kind of at a loss. The backfill that I do for that is that we do have inside of HubSpot, they have an ABM program that they just released in the last few months where you can have target accounts. So I do like to run a report of target accounts against opportunities. And that's one way that you can kind of start to close the gap as well.
Yeah, another way you can do it is you can roll up your opportunity information to the account, so at least you can find reports where there may be a candidate as far as a campaign member that has an opportunity that nobody's been linked to, so you can at least go back and do cleanup on it.
Yeah, for sure. Same thing. So now are you ready for drool-worthy sales intelligence?
Let's do it.
All right. So one of the biggest challenges that we have as marketers is that we need people to give us information in order for us to know how to market them. As we start to get into models where we're talking about one-to-one and even one-to-few marketing, we need some information from that contact in order to know what they're interested in. And so I kind of sat down one day and I was trying to figure out how to build an entire sales funnel. At the time, I was a member of a sales organization, and I was looking at a situation where I had a sales number and a quota to meet, but I had no pipeline and I had no marketing funnel driving anything into my pipeline. And so as I was looking at it, I said, I really need to understand a lot about these people in order to know how to respond to them, how to create solutions for them, how to message to them. And so I did something really different. Instead of running a marketing campaign, what I did, I'm going to move our faces out of here for you. What I did is that I wanted to know what was in their heads and where they would be investing in 2020. And as you can imagine, as a salesperson, when you go in and you say, hey, where are you spending your money in 2020? You kind of come across as like that salesperson they don't want to talk to. So what I did instead is I created a market research study. And I created that market research study. The very first one that I did, Jason mentioned, was around emotional intelligence. And it was designed for the marketing C-suite because that was the buyer that we were going after. Since then, I've created research studies around the IT industry, both on the economic impact of COVID-19, and then the most recent one that we're running is on cybersecurity and the state of cybersecurity post-COVID and the economic downturn. So you have to create a research study that is interesting and compelling to the market, and it shouldn't be about your product necessarily, but it needs to also link, right? So like whatever questions you're asking, it needs to be actual intelligence that's meaningful to the salespeople. Then we integrated those results directly into CRM. So both through HubSpot as well as into Salesforce. That record is inside of Salesforce. With one click, they can get over to the research study to see those results. Then you need to design a content and lead generation funnel. So really kind of looking at how you take it from I've answered a research study down into actually something that is a lead funnel that sales can follow up with, and then deploy a media blitz. The nice thing about this is because now you have market research on your industry, you now have a really compelling piece of content that you can take to the media and actually use to get media coverage, which is what we've done as well. So looking at just how this kind of parlays and what tools I use SurveyMonkey in order to run the survey. This gives me a really easy way. I build a SurveyMonkey, survey. It gives me finalized stats. I don't have to do a lot of work. I could even use their charts if I want to. I tend to rebuild them myself, but it makes it super easy, all integrated package solution. The nice thing about SurveyMonkey is that they also have integrations already with the marketing automation system that we're using. So we use HubSpot. SurveyMonkey links directly into that. So that survey result connects to a contact and it goes right into the database. So in this example, you can see in this economic impact study, we had 148 people out of 298 opt into our database. Now, as marketers, a 50% opt-in rate of people who answer 15 or more questions is like darn near impossible any other way, right? Like how many campaigns do you have to run 3 fields at a time to get that level of intelligence? So this research study methodology, you get a very high opt-in rate if you do it well, and 2, you're getting some really interesting data. In this case, when you start talking about making it interesting for sales, we ask the question of where are you investing in 2020? And then right inside of HubSpot, I can create lists that based on how people answered specific questions. So here are lists that I created for our sales team on people who are spending on IT security, on ITSM, service management, data analytics, process optimization, basically all of the things that we sell. They now have these lists of people that they can go and they can craft a message directly to them based on what they're spending in. But then, as if that wasn't enough to get them really excited, then inside of their actual record, it has their specific survey response. So our company has moved to a very targeted ABM approach. We have a targeted list of accounts that the sales team is actively working at any given time, trying to build relationships. Now they have 15 questions of intelligence that they can use to start that conversation. So with this example, you can see the person's a CIO, they work in general IT, healthcare and pharmaceuticals. I asked, how would you describe your decision-making style? This person's a deliberator. So as a salesperson, knowing that it's someone who wants validity and examples of success, I know that I need to send them success stories and case studies. And then we have all of their survey responses. So how they want their vendors to assist them, what are their highest priorities for the next 90 days. Then we also included how COVID impacted the revenue of their company. So all of these questions were used to create a story for not only this individual buyer, but then from a marketing perspective, I now have a report of what is happening in our entire industry with our company's name as the leading, person and company that went out and did this, this particular study. One of the things that we did after this is we actually also asked people to participate in an interview, and we had a handful of people also come through and do one-on-one interviews with our CEO, and he had a 40% conversion rate on those interviews into sales opportunities and sales conversations. So the strategy works really, really well. The key is that you need to just have an addressable market that you can then send it out to and get them to respond. At the back end of this, now that the study is complete, now we are doing webinars with all of our partners. So our partners were super interested in the data, and they were super interested in having conversations about the data. So this particular example, we're doing a webinar with one of our partners called Splunk. You saw the Splunk campaign at the beginning. Splunk is now participating in the webinar with one of their executives to have this conversation. So these are high value conversations, executive level conversations. And we're starting to trickle out the data. So 85% of Fortune 1000 IT teams have made adjustments to their 2020 goals and objectives, discover what it means, and we kind of give them, some key points that they're going to find. We also did a pop-up on our website to get people to register. So we did this as a fully integrated campaign from beginning to end. I will tell you that the program from start to finish is probably a 6 to 9 month marketing project. Building the study, because I've done them many times, we're down to a 4 to 6 week build time. But then actually running the study takes 2 to 3 months. And then you still have to collect all the data, build all your webinar components and all of that kind of stuff. But it creates this nice funnel that at the end, I have 148 people in the database who have answered 15 or more questions that our sales team can use to kind of craft their sales strategy for the next year over those contacts.
Cool. I know we're getting short on time, so I'll let you get through the last couple here.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we are short on time. I'm running late for a meeting. Okay, so innovative can openers and conversation starters. So just really quickly, one of the things that I've found really effective is this interview format. How to drive conversations that will convert into sales and design a win-win that really taps into your prospect's ego needs. So the way that we do this is I say, I believe your expertise is truly unique and would help a lot of your peers. I'm always honest because I do believe that their perspective is unique. Every person's perspective is unique. And then I ask them, would you be open to an interview for an upcoming Forbes article? We actually contribute articles to Forbes, so we often ask for people's perspective and quotes in those articles. Would you contribute your expertise as a panelist on a webinar? Or would you be willing to submit a short quote for an upcoming blog post on blank topic? That has worked really well, and being able to just start the conversation, because a lot of times sales doesn't need much. They just need to have that first conversation so that they then can convert that into a sales conversation. Our salespeople are awesome at that, but I can open the can for them. So in summary, integrate your campaign data from channel to marketing automation to CRM, use research study to capture that drool-worthy sales intelligence, play into your prospect's ego needs, leveraging your upcoming content calendar to drive conversations.
Great. Nicole, if you need to run, I can
answer. Let me just send a text message really quick, and I can answer like 1 or 2 questions.
Okay. While she does that, if anybody has any questions for Nicole or myself, go ahead and pop those in. And if we run even more over, Nicole has to run. I'm familiar with the vast majority of what she's covered here. And then if I can't answer it, then I'll let you know, and we can pass it over to Nicole for follow up after the fact.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Sarah's asking, yes, we will we'll distribute this. So we'll get an email out tomorrow with a link to the recording as well as the deck. And yeah, before Nicole has to run here, if anybody has any for her, let's go ahead and get those in. Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah.
Well, I think that might be all of it. Nicole, thank you so much. As always, this has been great. And then, like I said, we will get an email out tomorrow with a link to the recording as well as the deck. If you have any follow-up for myself or Nicole, just reply to that email and we can distribute that, play air traffic control, and get that out to whoever we need to. But,
yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks. Thank you. And absolutely, if you have questions, send them in. I'd be happy to answer them via email.
Great. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.